Hello, my name is Sophia Katopka, and I did my presentation on why do people conform to society and how does it affect us. What does it mean to conform? Conformity is the behavior in accordance with socially accepted conventions or standards. An example would be a student shows up to school wearing the brand Justice when all the other students wear brand Nike and Adidas. The student asks, "Why are you wearing Justice clothes?" in a way that the other student questions his or her choice of what they wore. We conform in our everyday lives without even recognizing it. We see people wearing a certain style of clothes, so we think, "Oh, that's so cool. Everyone is wearing that now. I'm going to give it a try." Can your setting affect how you conform? Yes, where you live and where you are can affect how you conform. I inserted this picture because this blue and black circle is surrounded by red and black circles. Most people do not want to stand out due to social anxiety because they do not want to draw attention to themselves. This blue and black circle is attracting attention to itself, so what do you think most people would do if they stood out in a social environment? Well, most people do not want to stand out, so we conform to have the same appearance as everyone around us. Stanford Prison Experiment and Social Rules. To begin with social rules, the definition of a social rule is a pattern of behavior that is expected of a person in a given setting or group. What is the Stanford Prison Experiment? The Stanford Prison Experiment, created by Philip Zimbardo, took random people who were willing to participate in the experiment and were separated into prisoners and guards. Their only rule was no violence and to make sure they are given meals. The social rules that were naturally developed from acting like they thought prisoners. Stanford Prison Experiment. A direct example from the experiment was when the volunteers who chose to be the guards started to yell at the prisoners, tell the prisoners to memorize their designated jail number, and they would start to punish them in ways that they thought a prisoner would be punished in a real prison. These strangers have never been to a real jail before, so how did they know what to do in prison? In movies where they show scenes of people being in jail, that is how people perceive prison or jail. So in this experiment, the prisoners used their social role that they thought a prisoner would act. They started to disobey the guards when told and asked to do something. The guards started to show aggression towards the prisoners when they would not obey them. So they started to isolate people like they would do in a real prison if someone disobeys or commits another criminal act in prison. Conformity in social norms. A group's expectation of what is appropriate and acceptable behavior for its members. How they are supposed to behave and think. In today's society, everyone is hopping on the train for new styles and looks. This is what you call a social norm. An example would be when I was in middle school, no one wore makeup or crop tops or even ripped jeans. Usually you would see older teenagers wearing the ripped jeans and the crop tops, but with social media, little kids in middle school are able to see these older styles and are copying the trend. Stanford Prison Experiment with social norms. The point of the experiment was to see how they would conform to their designated roles. When the prisoners started to disobey the guards, they thought that's what prisoners usually do. So they started fighting with the guards, trying to find ways to break out of the prison. The guards also showed social norms in the experiment because when the prisoners started to disobey, they started punishing them by either not beating them and hitting them behind cameras where the people running the experiment were supervising and could not see them. Conformity in scripts. Scripts are a person's knowledge about the sequence of events expected in a specific setting. The first day in high school, how do you act? Most have older friends already in high school, so they ask them. Or they go to the freshman orientation where the upperclassman explains to them how high school works and how to act. For example, say a freshman is getting hazed by a senior for making the varsity football team, and the freshman doesn't tell a coach or doesn't try to do anything back to the senior. That is because he is following the scripts that the freshmen get hazed on varsity teams. Stanford Prison Experiment. In the Stanford Prison Experiment, prisoners were being abused and they did not do anything about it. The people playing the role of the prisoners thought that their scripts was to take the abuse from the guards because in real prison you are not allowed to touch the guards. So they were following that script that they made from previous knowledge. When the prisoners were forced to do acts that were not allowed in the experiment, they did not fight it because they did not know what was allowed and what was not. Why is conforming bad? Conforming is bad for us because we are changing who we are to fit in. Fitting in is not always the key to success or the key to achieving our goals. Conforming will only hold us back from being ourselves. Standing out is not a bad thing. It means that you are confident in yourself and do not care what other people think. Stated in the 15 biggest pros and cons of conformity in society, the biggest cons to conforming is conformity increases the chances of depression, conformity often hampers personal progress, conformity causes you to lose your identity, and conformity doesn't encourage change in the world. There are positives to conforming, but there are more negatives than positives in today's society.